Good morning, everyone. Did you have a coffee already? I don't know, it was late for me yesterday with recap, if you were there. And I realized I didn't introduce myself yesterday. I'm Anna. I'm from the BTP product management and for build code, which wouldn't exist without the frameworks at heart, like CAP and UI5. So this today is about UI5, and we have great speakers, our first speakers for today. Andreas and Oliver from PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Wolfgang from Thunderhill Software. And they will talk about embedded analytics using UI5, BTP and HANA in the cloud. There is also a CAP application in there, so stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Anna, and good morning, everyone. I'm Oliver. I'm a software architect at PwC. Next to me is Andreas. He's one of our lead front-end developer, and Wolfgang, I would say he's addicted to embedded analytics, and he's responsible for our SAP HANA cloud system, and one of our experts for CAP development. So, I'm sure you guys know PwC as an auditor or as a tax advisory company, but in fact we are also producing software. So we also develop software, and our team, the Enterprise Cloud Solutions team, is the team inside PwC who develops software based on the sub-cloud technology stack. So we are using UI5, CAP, Node.js and HANA Cloud. This is a short overview of our product portfolio. So we focus on ESG, regulatory compliance and risk management. And the rectangles here are our modules, and they are tightly integrated to each other. So you can compare it to an ERP system. So we have a common platform, or we have developed a platform. Based on that, we have developed the suites, and inside there are the modules. They share the same core and suite data model. And today we focus on the app Check Your Value Chain, because we have integrated a lot of reporting and analytic functionality there. So let me introduce Check Your Value Chain. This app helps our customers to fulfill the requirements of the German Lieferketten-Sorgfaltspflichtengesetz. So it took me, I think, months to pronounce it fluently. It's also known as the Supply Chain Due Diligence Act. And this law makes it mandatory for German companies to respect human rights and to protect the environment, but not only for the companies themselves. They have to, I would say, the law is meant to be applied to the whole supply chain. So the companies have to analyze the supply chain and find potential risks. And our software does automatically identify the risks and help to manage the risks and help the user to provide the perfect insight into a huge amount of data. Huge amount of data is also the big challenge for us, how to provide the insight, and that's why I give you a short overview about the reporting functionalities which we provide. So on the bottom left corner, there are, so this the rectangle is, we provide fixed charts, tables, and KPIs, which answer the most important questions for the user at a glance. So we answer questions like, who are the most risky suppliers, what are my top countries, what are the top risk positions, and so on. On top of it, we provide also self-service reporting functionalities. On the one hand, we have flexible charts, which can be configured by the user in terms of dimensions, measures, filters, and chart types. And then we also have the multi-dimensional grid, which we found. It's a quite new control or component in UI5. I think the internal code name is Dragonfly. I'm not completely sure about that. And it provides pivot functionality. I would say it's the controller stream. And it's a quite cool component. And Andreas and Wolfgang will demo it to you and show you the technical details.
Okay,
Andreas.
thank you, Oliver. So I will give you a quick demo of the applications. And afterwards, I will show how we implemented it. So, wrong. Here, that is the first dashboard we built for the customers or the users. And here they can see the most important information. For example, here they can see how many business partners are in the system and especially what are or how many risk business partners they have. Then they can also see the different categories of risk, macroeconomic, media risks, and internal risks. And then here we have a smart chart where the user can see the business partners with the most risk categories or risk positions assigned to it, and the highest total spend, so that he knows on which business partner he has first to work on. And as you can see this here in the work list, we built a smart table for the users, also to see which business partners have open risks and how to mitigate them, or they need to mitigate them. And to do that, they can send, for example, a questionnaire to the business partner. And there they can answer questions and upload certificates to mitigate these risks. And then also for analyzing the data, as always said, it's a big amount. And here we have the high risk reporting dashboard. Here again can see the business partner with the most risks. Here, for example, it's business partner 1340. That's the one with the most risks. And here again, you can see it in relation to the total spend. And also you can see with the heat map, which countries have the highest macroeconomic risks, so that he also can check for the most risky countries and the business partners from there. And again, there are different risk positions, and there you can also see in the smart chart, in the smart table, sorry, the risk position with the most oftenly are assigned to the business partners. Here, for example, 122 of the business partners have the consumption of soil, water, air, noise emissions, etc. assigned. So that's the top risk in the system at the moment. As you can here, for example, filter for maybe the country, maybe Germany here. And then you just see the data of Germany, and he has other possibilities to filter. And that's our fixed charts. So we think that the information is useful for everyone. So we build some fixed charts. We cannot personalize it or change anything or show other figures. And for this case, when you want to analyze this data by its own, the self-service reporting is available. And here he can change the dimensions, the figures, and also the chart types, so that he can analyze the data like he needs to do it. For example, we could here exchange the total spend, as we maybe don't want to see this. And we can see in how many news articles this business partners provided, or the occurs. But we maybe don't want to see the business partner ID because it's not necessary here. And we can then also sort it, for example, as the number of business news articles. Right, and then he sees this chart he has created now. So it's totally flexible with the dimensions and measures we are providing via the calc view. And for example, you also could change the chart type. Maybe let's change it here to a heat map. So that chart would absolutely make no sense. So that's the reason why we have also fixed charts, because it's for unexperienced users sometimes complicated to figure out how to filter or how to build up the correct chart. So that's the reason we have really fixed charts, as you can see it directly and don't have to create his own reportings. And then, yeah, Oliver already mentioned it. We have a new control here that's part of the Dragonfly library. And at the moment, it's in the experimental state. But together with the SAP, yeah, we included it here in our first step, but it's not released at the moment to the customers. But we want to do it. So yeah, I will show it to you. So here, it's a multidimensional grid. And you can completely free analyze your data. For example, here you have your, why is the popper? Okay. Yeah, you can, for example, just put here in the macroeconomic risk that you can see how many risk positions are assigned in the system. So it's, now you just have a figure. It's not so interesting. So maybe you want to see it by country. Yeah, maybe makes sense to sort it so that you see the top risk country. And yeah, now you can see it's Bangladesh. Maybe you want to analyze it a bit more, then you can filter for this member. So it's now you can see the risk in this country, but you also maybe want to see which risks are there. Then you can also just put it in. Then you see, okay, there are child labor at 27 business partners and forced labor also. But maybe it would be interesting on which business partners the risks are assigned. Then you can also just put in the supplier. Then you see, okay, child labor, you have this business partners, but maybe you want to see every risk at this business partner, and then you can just put it one row before, and it's totally flexible. So you can just put it around, and then you see the data immediately. So it's also pretty quick. Yeah, and then maybe you have analyzed it, and you can now say exclude the member. So I don't want to see Bangladesh. I want to see the next most risky country, and then you will see again, the next data, then India, and so on, and also all the business partners of India. Yeah, first the next country, then China, and you could do much more, but I will not show everything now. But it's really cool because it's so fast and totally flexible. But yeah, as I said, at the moment in an experimental state. So then I will go back to our slides. So then I will show to you how we implemented this. Then first, for the fixed and flexible charts, we used a calc view, which prepares the data for the smart charts. And yeah, we annotated it with the dimensions and measures to be able to automatically render the smart charts. And yeah, that's the basis we used. Then we'll quickly just show a little example. Yeah, for fixed chart, I hope you can see it. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, the big difference is here that the personalization, as you can see, is disabled. So we don't show the toolbar, we don't show the personalization and the variant management. So that's really the fixed charts where the user can see the data and don't have to do it by his own. And in contrast to that, there is a flexible chart where we just disabled this or enabled the personalization feature and left the property away as the default is true. And now maybe to the most important part, that's the multidimensional analysis. And in fact, that's all you have to do in the UI. So you need to add a multidimensional model to your manifest JSON, just like the OData models in the same part. And here you see it's of the SAC, the F library, so the Dragonfly library. And you have to give a name to your data provider. That's the connection to the INA protocol. And we called it here the CalcView data provider, so that's the name we give it to it. And you have to give the CalcView name you want to use. And in our case, it's a HANA system, and we have a view behind it. So that's all you have to do in the manifest. And in your view, you just have to add this flex analysis control of the Dragonfly library. And all you really need is here to give the data provider and the client identifier. But I'm not 100% sure if maybe the UI5 is the default. So, and all the other properties here are just to not hide some toolbars or panels. You also wouldn't need it, and that's all you have to do in the UI, and you get a strong control for analyzing the data. And the rest of it, what you have to do is in the backend. And that will, Wolfgang, show to you.
Hello. Okay. My name is Wolfgang Pfeifer. I'm going to introduce you now in the technical details of our implementation and share some insights how we did build this. And the first thing I have to admit is, why do we want to do embedded analytics? Because it gives us a number of advantages from various points of view. The first is from the development itself, from the development process itself, we develop in one stack. With that. That means if you have SAP UI experience in our teams, then we can use these elements. We don't have to have additional expertise on the teams. The next is we use the same UI technology. We use the same data. It's common data. We have one database in the background. I will show you the architecture slide a little bit in the larger size. Then we go through these different elements and we take a look at the sources which are belonging to these various solution elements. Then we can manage access rights the same way. For operational part of the application and for the analytical part of the application, that means one of the same user gets different roles for his operational task and for his analytical task. We don't have to have kind of combine various concepts of giving access rights to these elements. Then it's one database, and we have one service layer. That means it's a kind of monolithic application which is addressing two major usage profiles. It's the OLTP part, and it is the analytical part. That means not for every of these parts an own stack, which is then adding and creating a lot of additional costs, also in operations, but have it in the same place. That's the idea. Of course, there's differences to more complex analytical scenarios. You might be aware from large organizations which have data warehouses and own layers for reporting, but there's the requirement and the boundary conditions are differently. There we are talking about different sources of different data quality. You bring them together in one place and harmonize the data. Here, we live in one data source with the operational part. It's harmonized, it's managed. We know how the quality of the data is, and we can directly use it for our analytical and reporting scenarios. That's the big advantage. The others I already named. And what we also want to do is, we want to keep the users as long as possible in our application if he's wanting to do data analysis. You know, there's also scenarios like, we have various personas which have to be addressed. One you saw with the simple and not configurable data table layouts. This is kind of the typical information consumer. Take a look, you want to see what the information is, and then you want to act. Then there's a little bit more complex interaction possible for users who want to need more insights. And at the end of the day, we want to address users which really want to do data analysis. This is the last part. That was the missing link for quite some time. We got the opportunity to use it in our POC and last year. This is the multidimensional grid. There you really can do online data analysis, like you are used to from Excel. That means we don't want the users to export the data from our environment and move it to some Excel, which is existing locally, massage the data and come up with very cool algorithms, but with data which is already outdated just after you have been exporting it. So we want to keep even these guys on our platform in our solution. And we think that we are capable to do this with the elements we have available now. What are the components? You can see that in the lower part is the HANA in the cloud. We definitely built on HANA. HANA provides us not only transactional capabilities, but also very powerful analytical capabilities. That means we use there as a key element for our reporting infrastructure and analytical processes calculation views. But we also have database tables which are derived from the CDS and CAP models. So we do a complex CAP modeling, then in CDS, then we deploy, and the calculation views are created on top of that. You know, you need to have a database connection with the existing objects to model the calculation views. We'll just take also a look on one of them. And then we have two channels, technical-wise, to access them. One is we are able to integrate the calculation view into the OData stack and make the calculation view look like an OData object. So in fact, the service layer doesn't feel the difference. It's an OData request you're sending. At the end of the day, it ends up in SQL. The SQL has specific elements. I mean, if you know SQL for calculation views, then you know there's this section for input parameters. We are doing this in some handlers, sometimes created automatically. That means we are interacting with the calculation view as it would be a normal CDS-driven object. That means we have CDS projects for that, proxies for that. And what we heavily built on is annotations. Why annotations? Because annotations make us very efficient. So the charts you saw, mainly smart charts, they are based on annotation definition, annotations from SAP delivered for analytical scenarios. We're going to take a look at this a little bit later, which are annotating these objects and making us, enabling us to use smart charts. That means no own freestyle chart development, at least in the major places. Also, this interaction you saw is completely based on a smart chart scenario annotated with the calculation view. It makes us, this enables us to create these objects very quickly. So we don't have to spend weeks of development and doing all these details. We can concentrate on the gaps we have in the application and invest there. So we are very efficient in this area. That's the first channel. So database, proxies, annotations, smart objects, smart tables, and smart charts. The second channel, which is running in parallel, is completely bypassing the kind of OData and CAP layer. It's simply a REST service access point, which is integrated into the service layer. We're going to take a look at this as well. And this is the service point, this is the endpoint where this multidimensional grid is connecting to. There's no data in between. There's also no kind of SQL-based interaction. But this is the grid is creating an, I don't know if you're familiar with that, there's an SAP API technology, it's called INA, and it's expecting a complex JSON, which is describing the multidimensional query. This complex JSON can be directly passed through to a built-in kernel HANA procedure called MDS execute. And it is processing it directly. No translation to SQL necessary. So in fact, you know, I mean, who's around with HANA for maybe some longer time knows there is a set of function APIs which have been used, I don't know, until 5 years ago. Then they have been closed. So you could there also, on your own, define all these steps, how you would like to see process the calculation model. The SQL on top is like syntactical sugar. So the SQL gets parsed in the HANA and kind of transformed in excess of these interfaces. And the same way happens it to the JSON we get from the multidimensional grid. So what was on our side was kind of embedding the grid into the UI. This is what Andreas already shared with you. And then we have been really building a small provider in the backend, which is receiving the JSON, bypassing it to HANA. HANA is executing it, and then we're returning the result JSON, which is then in the format the multidimensional grid can present. So this is what we're doing. So 2 channels. We take a look at this a little later. And one word in regards of the multidimensional grid. It's not just the grid. It's in fact a small analytical application. You saw some of the icons there. You can filter. You see the value help. You can. What I find personally fascinating is this grid is even able for sticky notes. So if you know what we're talking about is, I mean, you have a user and he wants to build a kind of data view, and then he wants to annotate some cells in there. So it's cell-based. It's not row-based. It's really analytical support in browser, which I personally really cheer. I've been waiting for that for 15 years, honestly spoken. Yeah, then you can build a sticky note. You store it. You change the data view. Sticky note is gone. You get back to the other data view. The sticky note is back. And we think our users will love that. We presented it to some parts internally in the organization. We got already a request. When are you going to deliver this? And the hope is really we can keep the people in our application for data analysis. And this is thanks SAP delivering these components is enabling us to do this. Then let's now take a look into the implementation. Escape. Yeah. I hope it's still working. So, yeah. This is a look into the bars. I mean, we have specific project layout. We call it the monorepo. All our applications are part of this repository. There's one mta.yaml. We have sharing of components. So there's a lot of things we've done. We have also platform architecture where we have reuse. So it looks a little bit more complex than the usual projects you've seen. But this is an investment over the last 2 to 3 years. And it's also enabling us to work very quickly. Let's at first start with this kind of OData channel. So this is the service CDS you see here, and here you see the reference to the calculation view, and we can easily. I hope I can able to do this. Simply navigate there. This is the calculation view definition compatible for our data. If you kind of search in the internet, you find them. There's I think more than one way. We use this one, and the good news is we don't write this by hand. Our objects are quite large, so the proxy. So we have 2 calculation views, in fact. which contain up to 260 columns, which is not a problem. I mean, we're talking about a column-based database management system where it depends on the projection you define at runtime, how it's executed. So it's fast. It allows us to keep everything in. And that means the proxy would be large. So and that's why we decided we don't write them manually, because that's just a lot of effort, it's error-prone. We built an own small generator for that, so these proxies are generated. So what we are doing is we're connecting to the database, we are kind of evaluating the runtime object, and then we're translating it into this format and storing it locally. So not just this proxy, but the other two proxies as well, which gives us, again, the push and efficiency. Otherwise, somebody has to sit there for an hour, and then we find out, oh, we forgot a field, or some part there, and then it's not running. So we want, at one side, be efficient, that means quick, on the other side, reduce so the risk of errors due to the fact that somebody has been forgotten something. So this is this proxy. You see the proxy is then integrated into the service file, and so it makes the calculation view look like a normal OData object. Then we have some other stuff. So this proxy file is just containing information about the types of the fields. It's nothing. There's nothing analytical information in. The analytical information we bring in at a different place. It's this one. So it's based on this proxy definition, and it annotates the whole thing. Let me see. This is analytical. This one. Oh no. Let me see. I'll just be there. There we are. So this one. It's also generated file. I have to remove this. And you see, here we are using the analytical annotations provided by SAP. These analytical annotations are then used by the analytical elements, like the smart chart. So, and here we make a difference between characteristics and key figures. So, and this is this creates the kind of amount of fields, or set of fields you can see if you do a drop down in this flexible chart. So it's based on this information. So we annotate here an element and say you are a characteristic, then you can see it in that drop down. No work for us. So that makes the whole thing easier. Then, that's the last thing in annotations I would like to share. It's also generated. You can see it here based on this information. And here we have annotations which are defining the various elements for smart charts. So that means, to make a quick summary, we have a calculation view in the HANA. We have a small generator which is generating all these proxy elements which are stacked on, above each other. And this is the way how we are making available the calculation view in the OData stack and allowing the UI using smart technologies to access it. So this is the first stack. So, I mean, it's not so much. You could say, oh, it's not the problem is finding out all these nitty-gritty details. What's the specific syntax? Why is the object not showing up? Why does it have a different name? Where the name is different? So we spent some time on that until we solved everything for that, and now we can use it. So we scale. Then let me simply kind of close that. Here's the calculation view, so it's loading the calculation editor. And yeah, as long as it's loading, yeah, there we are. You see, this is the calculation view we have been creating for the demo, so it's not very complex. It's based on one of the calculation views. It's on the proxy calculation view we use for our application. So why we so we have specific scenarios. For instance, you saw a lot of counters. They are implemented as distinct counters. This is a functionality the key figure implementation of calculation views are providing. And we use, we have a time-based thing, so we have restricted key figures on top of that. This is mainly the reason why we have two calculation views, because you can't define a restricted key figure on top of a counter key figure. You have to have an additional kind of calculation view on top of this. This is just one of the details. So then we have complex business logic inside, how we define which entries has to be calculated or not. So initially, we thought we are able to generate calculation views out of annotations we have in the kind of CDS data. The problem is, the whole annotation thing you have to do for that is really complex and it's distributed. So that's why we decided we're going to model it here. So the effort is the same, and the result can better be managed. The trade-off is you have to have specific knowledge for doing this. That means you have to have a guy who is able to do the modeling. Now let's finally take a look into the ENA access. That means for the multidimensional grid. Here's simply the CDS file, and as I said, we share it. The CB core is one of our shared components. There we have the definition. Let's quickly go there. Oh, so that's the definition of the HTTP service. It's REST. Yeah, it's not our data. We have, in fact, we have two actions or two things to interact. One is get server info. This is something we can implement as a GET, because I mean it's not expecting any parameters inside. The data retrieval itself is not implemented as GET, but it is in post. Why it's in post? Because you need to have a lot of parameters to deliver to this, and the GET does not have a body in the request. So I remember I've been building GET requests in the past, and there I've been working with all these header parameters, but they are slightly limited. So the better idea is to put a different REST verb, that's why it might be a little bit strange why this is a post. This is only because there's a very big incoming JSON, and you need to have the place to transport it. That means you have to have in a request a payload, and this is not what a GET has. So that's why it's a post. That, of course, introduces the necessity to build an action in the background, because if you have a post-based interaction, then you can call the function only based on an action. So we had to change that also slightly. But that's simply it. One point in that, sometimes, also we ask ourselves, are we able to change the path? Then the guy said, no, it's not. And if somebody has an ABAP background, it might look familiar. It looks like SICAF or ICM. So I think this is where it comes from. You know, the initial access was accessing BW, for instance, and there they have been introducing these access points in the Internet Connection Manager in the ABAP stack. So that's why there's no change possible. It looks a little bit different, so you need to get used to it, but in fact, we can ignore it, and it works perfectly. So then let's now open the itself implementation. This is the implementation. You see, we have been implementing it here. There's a request which is handling the server request, and the other one. So it's really 30 lines of code. And this is the place where the magic comes from. Here we are executing the request, which is coming in, and then we kind of respond the JSON we're getting back. So that's it. There has been also to be figured out a number of details, because we wanted to have it tightly integrated in our service layer. So initially we got an example where you have to run an own Express application. We didn't want to do this because we have a service layer. So let be there an additional access point. Then we had to manage that due to the fact that we have a shared set of components. We want to make it available for every application. So you saw the first example of implementation here. We already built last week. We built another one. We hope we can distribute it to all our applications and kind of have a value add for our customers, make it very attractive and show them, look guys, what we have, this is something you can use. And it's again, saying thank you to SAP providing these components. We are very lucky to having them. And due to the fact that we did it together, we were able to use them. Thanks for your attention. So I'm done. Thank you. Bist du? Fragen? So any questions?
I will come over with the microphone if you have questions. There's one.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. So since you're using smart controls, so I assume it's V2 adapter that you use for the communication, right?
Yes, we use V2.
What was the initial decision behind going for V2 and smart controls as opposed to V4 and something like MDC, metadata-driven controls?
Yeah, when we started developing our platform, the building blocks weren't available. And now we have multiple applications. And to introduce it now would be quite complicated, as we didn't have enabled the draft mode. And when we do it, as we have so many entities which are related and used in every application, we would have to change very, very much. And so we didn't do it so far.
So if you would be doing it now, would you consider using V4?
We want to do it, but it would take some time. And at the moment, we have very much feature we have to ship to the customers. So when we have some time, we want to do it.
So maybe another presentation in a few years.
Yeah, maybe next time.
Do we have more questions in the room? There's one.
Thank you also for the presentation. We are not using this kind of technology in our company, but I was curious about to know how do you manage the roles of users? Which user should see one thing and another thing?
Das ist
Bin ich gut zu hören? Jemand versteht mich nicht? Dann brauche ich kein Mikro. Ne?
Du musst aber Englisch reden.
I can talk. I think I can talk English without micro, but it's fine. Ah, yeah. Okay. Not too late. Stay in the coaching zone. Okay, guys. How we manage the roles? There's a technique. It's you have HTTP files. You can define roles. You can calculation views included in these roles. Then you can deploy these roles, and the design time user of a container is able to assign this role to a user. We have been using this for scenarios where the access from SAC was requested. So there's users in our applications which are then have a role in the application itself, and based on a specific application role we're going to assign them, they get access to the calculation views. And if they don't have a database user, we generate one. This is some capabilities we have built on our own. We're going to use this technique now in one stack, where we do the same thing. That means you can define a role. There you include the rights you have on a calculation view, and then you can simply assign the role. We have a specific application which is assigning and managing roles. This one is also very interesting because it's based on a Fiori element. It's a Fiori Elements app. It's not kind of freestyle. There we assign roles. So yeah, we are able to manage that.
Do we have more questions in the room? No? I would maybe have one non-technical one. The data you showed, is that real data or sample data?
Yeah, it was sample data.
Because I wondered the list of countries.
There's one point for this data. We use this data heavily for internal testing. So because without data we can't test anything. It's data we use for testing. So it's demo data. Data used for testing. Demo data. I'm like a papagaya. Thank you.
Okay, then thank you so much for this insightful session. And if you come up with questions later, I'm sure you'll find them around.